In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to produce a piano ballad instrumental using an example of a ballad that I have made today for the purpose of this video. Now, this piano ballad, it is a very simple pop ballad. It just incorporates piano, strings, and vocal layers with a little bit of bass and pads here and there to make a full sounding production. This is something that if you struggle to make this style of music, hopefully this video can help you. So make sure you watch to the end and hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Now, where do we start? We're going to start with the piano because this is a piano ballad. Now, the thing about ballads is I think a lot of people sometimes get very confused from the production point of view, where you feel like you have to add loads and loads and loads to make a production sound powerful, have development and dynamics, when realistically for a ballad, a lot of this can be done through the piano. Now, I've written a song for this, and when it comes to the starting point in my opinion should always be the chords. If you can get some chords down, that can spark some inspiration on vocal melodies. So we're just going to focus firstly on the actual piano itself. Now, for inspiration for the song, I took it from Phineas. Phineas is a very good ballad producer, and the song Break My Heart Again is a major influence on this production. So firstly, when we go to the piano, you can go between an upright or you can go between a grand piano. For this video, I used The Gentleman by Native Instruments. This specific setting was the mellow upright, and I just softened the tone a little bit, and I also put it in a concert hall space to get a piano that sounds like this. And then when it gets onto the chorus, it develops a lot faster. Now, what I said about the piano and why it's such an amazing instrument in terms of production is because you can play with the dynamics and the playing patterns of the piano to add development to a track without having to add any new instruments. Now, as you can hear from the start, it starts very delicate. And then we move on into the verses. It's the same chords, slightly different still. Going into the second part of the verse, this is when it starts to pick up. Now, this is going to be the pace for the rest of the production, but at this point we're playing the velocity a little bit more. But then when we get to the chorus, this is when we get the full sound of the piano. And this is just something that you can play around with, and I'm going to share more of the piano development later in this video, but I just wanted to basically just use that to explain about the dynamics you can play with the piano, because it can do a lot of the production for itself, because as you can see here, there's not really a lot going on. Now, the next thing you want to do, obviously, is you want to write over the song. Now, this is more for producing, so there's not going to be as much songwriting involved in this video, but, however, I will share with you a song that I wrote for the purpose of this video, and we'll just focus on the main vocal for now. So I wrote this song inspired by the sort of topic that Phineas does. It's kind of like about all the baggage of things that you didn't get to say before a breakup. So when the breakup happens, you're still left with all these questions, unanswered questions, all that. And that's what this song's about. So I went for a delicate kind of performance for most of it.
Voices, not in words, your silence louder than I've heard.
So that's the verse. And then obviously the chorus is here.
Don't pretend you're halfway gone, you're nowhere now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me like I might let go.
So there you go. You can make what you will of my songwriting ability, but I'll show you how I mix the vocal as well. Now, there's a lot going on here. Firstly, the first thing I always apply is Waves tune, the real time. It's in the key of G major, so I just put it on there. Have the note transition about 12 o'clock on this knob, I always do, and then the correction about 71%. You don't want it to be too hard, because if it's too hard, it will sound too auto-tuned, which you don't want. And next, then, I have a channel EQ just to try and roll off any unwanted noise straight off the bat before we apply a compressor. So then after we've done that, we can go to our first compressor, and I use the FET Studio. This is a very good Logic compressor because it's got a lot of nice saturation to it and adds really nice color to a vocal, a lot of depth, especially for a delicate vocal performance like this. It's very good. And when paired with the Vintage Tube EQ with the pop vocal preset, it's an absolute winner. So the next thing in the chain, obviously, after that is to add our de-esser. And then after I'm quite happy with the dry vocal mix, I like to put it into a room, 1.6 seconds, just to kind of give it like cemented in a place in the mix. So it's not like right in your face at the front of the mix. Putting it into a reverb kind of like sets it back just a tiny bit, makes it really helpful for blending into the production later on. Because if you just got the vocal right at the front of the mix, when you add the production, that's when you get that sound where you've got the production and the vocal, and you want them to be blended together. So putting them in a room just really helps with that. Then I added a stereo delay next just to kind of like flutter around with, and then we got the wrong reverb. I'll just quickly play with all of these getting added so you can hear what they're doing at each stage. And of course, lastly, I've got a little bit of parallel compression, which I've nearly struggled to say there, which has the compressor here. We've got the vintage FET, and everything's just turned up, cranked up, because that's what you want in the parallel compression that we're doing here. A lot of highs boosted, and this is what in chain sounds like what it was doing to the vocal.
Voices, not in words.
So tuning,
your silence louder
EQ, compressor,
than I've heard.
tube EQ,
You look like
de-esser,
someone
into the room,
I once knew.
a little bit of stereo delay,
But now you smile.
reverb, and then the
and
compressor.
I see right through.
And then that's the mixing for the main vocal. So after this, you might think that I'm going to talk about the rest of the production, but songwriting also can apply to the production as well, because how we get really nice full sounding production without using many instruments can actually be achieved through the vocal. And in a lot of Phineas productions, Billie Eilish, the vocal stacking is something that's incredible. Sounds really like emotive as well, and could be a really nice addition to any pop ballad. So the next thing I've actually done is recorded backing vocals. Now, how this is achieved was basically through working out different harmonies in the chorus. Let's firstly play it all together.
So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You know when now, not lost, just wrong. Hold me like I might let go.
Now, I'm not a whiz when it comes to working out vocal harmonies, so this actually did take a little bit of time, but I really just took my time trying to figure out the right melodies for each section. I've got 4 different harmonies going on here. So this is the first one, and I always do double takes of every single layer of harmony to really make it sound nice and big. And then they also go into a sample delay, because this pushes them one bias slightly to the right, one bias slightly to the left, but it doubles up even more, theoretically making 16 vocals. So it's a really big chorus by using this sample delay technique. And then also I also apply pitch correction as well, just to make sure they're really nicely and in tune. So this is vocal layer 1.
So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You know when now.
And then vocal layer 2. My Michael Jackson harmony. Ooh. Now, as you hear there, that was a little bit rough around the edges, but when you're doing a chorus vocal like this, it really does not matter, because you're just creating a nice big stack of vocals. Doesn't matter if you go wrong in places. Doesn't matter if it sounds weird. I mean, I sound like a chipmunk here. But in the context of everything, if you just add this to it, because it all harmonizes, it makes it sound nice. So don't worry about doing perfect vocal takes. Focus more on the timing more than the pitch. So then this is the third one. And then the last one. So this one's actually a repeat of the main vocal melody. So when you put it all together like this, it sounds like this.
So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You know when now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me.
Now, what I've done for the actual mixing of the backing vocals is I basically copied and pasted most of the main vocal across. So it sounds very similar, but I have changed the EQing. I've cut off 6 to 10k or tried to lower it. This will really help the main vocal stick in over the backing vocal, kind of pushing it back a bit. But I've done a little bit of a lift in the really like super high frequencies from 15 kilohertz onwards, just a little bit of airiness, so like they take up kind of like a pad role in the actual production itself as well. No parallel compression. Then reverb slightly different. We've gone for a massive size reverb in the ROM reverb, 61%, 1.8 second. Didn't want the reverb to be too long, because that can really muddy up the mix if you've got all these vocals at once going through that one reverb. So just be careful not to do too much of a big reverb on your backing vocals. Now the one next thing to do is to focus next on the kind of like impactfulness of the track and the low end. At this point, you can kind of go to whatever you prefer, because obviously I said I've got pads and strings to do. I just like next to kind of add some sort of low end, because when that chorus hits, a nice like low subby bass can really help add a lift to a production where at the moment we've only got piano and vocals. So I've added the deep 808 bass in here. So this is Alchemy. It is the deep 808. I've turned the attack to 20% so we don't get that stab at the start. So it's literally just sub, and this sounds great. I apply this in almost all of my projects for everything because it's just really great sub bass. So when you actually add this with the piano and the main vocal, and we have a listen from the pre-chorus here going to the chorus, you hear the difference it makes. So don't pretend you have. It's just something extra, because when you're trying to sell a song to the listener, you want development, you want to have little details which keep things interesting, and just having that 808 bass in there just adds a little lift to the chorus, makes it sound like it's extra from the pre-chorus. So when we've got not a lot going on, adding something tricks the listener into thinking that something new has happened, which makes the song more bearable to listen to for longer. And after that now, it's all about trying to figure out how we can make this song sound even cooler. So I really wanted to focus on making the bridge section in this one particularly a really kind of like unique section. Now with piano ballads, you can go two ways in the bridge. You can either go kind of down, strip it back, do very like blocky chords and emotional, or you can go really powerful. I've gone for a powerful take this time. So I've changed the chords up, obviously to add development after the second chorus, and I'll just firstly play it to you so you can hear what's going on. Real, it wouldn't hide, it wouldn't slip through either side. If you had cared, I'd feel it now, but silence is your only vow. So when it comes to this bridge, as you can tell, what I've done here is a production technique where we are currently building the track from the start of the bridge to the end to get to that final chorus. So you could hear when you were listening to it, it felt like it was the vocal was building like da 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 da, like, and it was just going up. So when we finished the vocal melody in the bridge, we'd reached the top, which allowed us to get back into the chorus. Now, this is a really good example of how you can use your melody to add a build to a production without adding anything extra. Now, I have added strings in to really help with this, but you can just focus on the vocal when doing this, and it still has the exact same effect. We're going to get onto the strings now, but when you're doing your melodies, just really try and factor in what you're trying to build to when you're writing your melody. Do you want to end on a perfect cadence, or do you want to build, add suspense, maybe ready for the final big chorus? It's sort of things like that which could be really effective for making the ballad sound really cool when you get to different sections and transitions in the track. Now, for the strings, I have a certain rule when I'm writing strings in a production. We have our strings right here, and I wrote the strings at the start of the bridge because this is probably the most complex part. You always want to write your strings around the most complex part of the track and then kind of work back in the production, especially if you've got repeats where it's the same chords, because as I've done here, you can sometimes just take out certain parts like the cello and chords, and you can add really quickly strings to your whole production. Now, I've only got strings from the second verse onwards because I want to have development throughout the track. So leaving the strings out in the first half means that we have a development for the whole second half of the song with the strings being added, which makes the very simple ballad seem more interesting all of a sudden. So I started with a cello, record that in first. Next, I add strings, just the chords, very simple. And at this point then, I just start adding 2 to 3 melodies in, just some moving up, some moving down, kind of like countering each other, different like kind of like arps maybe, or just different patterns, so they all just kind of like gel and flow together harmonically. So this is the first melody added. So trying to help the chords along. Then I added in this more like arpy one to add a little bit more movement. Finishing off with the string melody 3 to harmonise with melody 1. And then finishing with the high octave to add a real nice sense of colour. And as you can see, as I was saying with the vocal melody, I was really trying to make it a build up to something. So with this melody right here, and with the cello, we're making sure that the ending note is higher than the note we started with to help that vocal melody get to that point where it's achieved the build for the final chorus. So that's just, again, something to keep in mind, even for strings, because I find that strings and vocals, they work hand in hand with each other. So you should really play into that, because it's a very humanistic instrument, strings. Now, when it comes to mixing it, obviously put it all into a track stack, and then I use the sample delays again to basically double the size of the string section, push them to the left and to the right. And then when it comes to mixing, very simple. I just like to do a high boost, take out around like 1K to 4K, some sort of ducking, because this gets some of the mid-high harsh frequencies out of the way so it can sit back in the mix more. A lot lows, mainly to emphasize the cello a lot more, because we don't have a lot of bass going on in the verses, because obviously our 808's just in the chorus. And other than that, we just add a ROM reverb, make sure the size is 100. Really just chuck the strings into a room when you're doing your string mixing, because strings sound very MIDI when you record them in, but if you put them into a reverb, which is like the size of 100% and very much mixed in, almost like at least 50% wet, you're putting the strings in a room, which makes them sound a lot more natural, a lot more real. So don't have your strings dry. Chuck them into some sort of a room or a reverb, because it will really help them sound a lot more authentic and real than just MIDI. And then lastly, the only thing I've really added is this breathy vox to add some sort of synthetic texture, because nowadays it's very common for a synthetic pad to still exist in a very much a ballad type song. So I just used the breathy vox, which is the preset in Logic, just to add some sort of like breath and high end. Now, the last thing I want to point out that I've done is the ending. How do you end your ballads? Again, you can go one of two ways. You can end big, or you can end delicate. I decided to end this delicate, and I also decided to make it suspenseful, not a cadence. So let's just have a listen to the ending here so you can hear it in action.
Things you left unsaid.
Suspenseful. Now again, this is an emotional performance and a production, so you really want to kind of drive home almost that musical theatre-esque feel that you get when you're in a theatre watching like a ballad there, where it's emotional and you want it to like make you feel something, and the suspenseful makes you feel like, ooh, like a little bit, you know, there isn't a word that's coming to my head right now to describe it, but I feel like you get what I mean when I say that. So normally, naturally, the thing would be to end on the root, but we're not going on the root. This is in G major, but we're ending on an E minor, which is fine, because you can make it work. There are certain chords in the key where you can really make it work, and as you see, I've just gone up the octaves with the E. And then when we get to the top, we go da-da. Going from the C at the end there to a B with that, that's where we get the suspense from, because they're only like a semitone apart. And obviously like the C wouldn't be finishing on a note which is in G major, but finishing on a B, because B is in that G chord, which we could finish on because that's the root. It is a note that we can work with, and because it's the third, that's a more suspenseful note even than finishing on a fifth, which in this case would be a D. So that was my thought process behind it. Now that might, for those of you who know theory, I probably haven't explained that well enough. For those of you who don't know theory, it might have gone over your head. So basically, if you want to know how to finish a track suspensefully, just play the triad of the root notes. So say your key is in G major. So we go G, B, D. You can finish on any of them and it would work. See? Or maybe I wanted to finish on, or maybe I want to finish on G. As it's in G, every time you can hear that it works. So that's basically why I decided to end on that. I didn't want to end just on the G. I just thought like I wanted a little bit more at the end. And obviously we've gone for block chords here. And I've actually kept the quantizing off on the piano to try and make it sound as real as possible.
Things you left,
so you can hear the timing of the chords.
So don't pretend
that kind of like rolling the chord in. If you don't touch the quantizing, it can make a piano that's MIDI sound very real as well. But yeah, guys, that is the whole production. I hope this tutorial helped. I'll quickly go on to a bit of the mastering as well, because I've kept it very simple. For the channel EQ, I just took a bit out of 4K, and then I've actually used Logic's mastering. I wanted to use it for this video to show there's nothing wrong with using this, especially as like mastering. You can spend 5 minutes doing it, you can spend a whole day doing it. But for the purpose of this video, and hoping that this is more for like a beginner producer or beginner's intermediate, trying to just refine their craft and production, there's nothing wrong with using the mastering system. I use the Valve preset to kind of like tidy up a little bit, and it did a really good job out the tin. I'm very impressed with this actually. And I've just finished off in the L1 Ultra Maximizer. If you want to know more about these plugins that I've used in this video, I'll leave a link below in the description so you can check out these plugins for yourself that I've used in this mix. But what I'm going to do is, for the end of this video, I'm just going to leave this song running from start to finish so you can hear this start to finish. Let me know what you think of the song in the comments below, and let me know what style or subgenre of music you want me to do next in the tutorial. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Keep making music, and I'll see you in the next video.
You speak in pauses, not in words. Your silence louder than I've heard. You look like someone I once knew, but now you smile and I see right through. So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You're nowhere now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me like I might let go, but I already did. You'll never know. You haunt the halls inside my head, left with the thoughts that can't make sense, with all the things you left unsaid. You come and go like changing skies, too blue to cry, too grave for lies. You never meant to make me stay, but never meant to walk away. So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You're nowhere now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me like I might let go, but I already did. You'll never know. You haunt the halls inside my head, left with the thoughts that can't make sense, with all the things you left. If love was real, it wouldn't hide, it wouldn't slip through either side. If you had cared, I'd feel it now, but silence is your only vow. So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You're nowhere now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me like I might let go, but I already did. You'll never know. You haunt the halls inside my head, left with the thoughts that can't make sense, with all the things you left. So don't pretend you're halfway gone. You're nowhere now, not lost, just wrong. You hold me like I might let go, with all the things you left unsaid. said.